Thanks everyone for joining in. We hope to have a very powerful and interesting conversation today. And the panelists that I have is a set of very eminent yet diversified set of panelists. We have Wilhelm from ABB, which is ABB being one of the most mature company when it comes to building IoT solutions. We have Sanjay from iBot, who's the CEO at iBot, and it's one of the young companies working with multiple platform players in the IoT space and building verticalized solutions for daily or consumer-based IoT applications. We have Mr. Kishor Chitale from Capgemini, and I'm sure he would have worked with multiple enterprises, helping them build IoT programs and helping them deploy real-life IoT programs, be it for consumer or industrial applications. And then we have Srikanth from Microsoft, who heads the Azure business. And I'm sure he would have worked with multiple customers in helping them build their overall IoT strategy. So I would like to begin by saying IoT is one of the most confusing trends of our times. There are Gartner analysts, McKinsey reports, even Zinnov reports, which put the industry at maybe billions of dollars, already spent coming in multiple trillion dollars, 50 billion devices by 2020. But if you talk to end customers, for them IoT is still a first word technology. It's all about connecting cool gadgets to the internet, which may or may not be of use to them. So I'll start with a question to Wilhelm on how a large company such as ABB, which is one of the most powerful industrial manufacturer, has gone through that IoT transition, and are there real programs actually being implemented around IoT?
So I can say for ABB, we call it sometimes Intranet of Things. So connecting many different devices in automation technology was almost there. But now the IoT is actually disruptive for our technology because now other parties are coming in and they are opening. We need to open the world for more services, for more interaction with the control systems. And that actually really changes our landscape and how we run business in automation technology, not only for our own devices, but also including all other devices which are in automation technology and how they are interacting. So it's a big challenge, and we are ready to address it.
So Kishor, coming back to you, you would have worked with multiple customers. And in fact, we have read about some of the success stories wherein you implemented Capgemini or iGate as an organization, implemented large programs. So do you think things have really moved in the IoT space over the last 2 years? People are talking about real programs, real strategy, rather than just talking about use cases for IoT?
Absolutely, I think. First of all, it's not only about IoT. So we look at things as a more digital transformation element. It has to be a holistic view of looking at things. And IoT will play an important role because we see 3 buckets: customer experience, operational excellence, and the business model change. And IoT is at the heart of your operational excellence. So some of the things that we look at, IoT is not only about device management or device connectivity. There's large, you can say, impetus people are putting on the data acquisition, data analytics part of it, and of course moving to the cloud part of it. And you're right, we are really seeing that work happening not only in small use cases, but real business transformation. We work with the 3rd largest mining company. I think mining is a very difficult topic, and we help them put some 200 vehicles remotely managed in a hazardous environment. And the data that one could get out of this IoT exercise was phenomenal. The savings, the remaining life of a vehicle you could gather right from the source of the data. So things are changing. It's real stuff.
And Srikanth, Microsoft has always been at the forefront of technologies. And IoT has been a large focus for Microsoft. Their Microsoft Azure IoT solution is something they are hitting the market really well. So what is your take? What have you seen among your customers? Have the use cases become really apparent? Are they really investing and being able to take a strategic decision about IoT? Or are they still finicky whether they need to invest in IoT or not?
Great. I would say let's start with some fundamentals here. And clearly, if you look at any technology wave that sort of goes through a massive cycle of adoption, it has to pass through these basic tests. Like take any hype, like 4 years back, when we were on a similar platform discussing cloud, we talked about these things, hey, cloud is coming, is it really mainstream? No longer are we questioning that credibility. It is pretty much mainstream. Every large enterprise is talking about it. But if you just were to dissect that adoption and say, okay, what really is a technology adoption curve and where does it intersect at what customers are looking for? If you put that lens, there are 3 things that stand out. Any technology that helps drive better costs, lowering of costs, gives you far better agility in terms of responding to situations, in terms of launching markets faster, in terms of solving a problem pretty quickly. And then finally, if it helps you differentiate better vis-a-vis your other players, competitors, any technology that helps you do these three things really stands the test of time. There will be a lot of tech waves that come, but the one that passes the litmus test of these three stands out. And just a year back, we had a very similar conversation here, whether IoT is still in. Is it a hype word that people are just going to touch upon the way we talked about cloud? But today you talk to any large enterprise. We deal with the largest of enterprises, right from manufacturing to healthcare to retail to banking. Every place you have an IoT conversation that is going in, not because it is sort of a great fad to sort of, it really has an impact on business results. The companies that we have worked with right from the shop floor, whether it's a Godrej with some of our partners, or if it is a company that's like a steel tycoon, SR, who's trying to even get people who are temp laborers and contract workers also to have a sense of their own security, where they are in a particular part of the building at any given point in time. Simple solutions, cost-effective solutions can give very game-changing, I would say, control to a large enterprise. And that's where IoT fits in. So if you go and touch across the entire diaspora about verticals from healthcare, retail, manufacturing, banking, there is enough and more interest. And what we are seeing is some just real examples of people finding value. They're implementing these projects, and then now they're saying, okay, IoT, as Kishor really pointed out, is a part of a bigger piece of digital transformation that large enterprises are going through. So if you're able to connect the dots, it plays a very, very big role and super mainstream right now.
So we have a consensus that IoT is real, it's happening, and it's a core strategy. It's a core part of the overall digital transformation journey and not just one of the technologies that companies are looking at. So, and when it comes to actually implementing or building IoT solutions, or be it any technology, the core discussion has always been about build versus buy. So there is option of working with iBot where you can just buy off the solution, or Microsoft, or build that solution. So Kishor, have you seen your customers going through the journey, and what are the components that they need to look at in order to answer that question?
Yeah, it's a tough question. First of all, we are a technology agnostic company, so we believe in providing right value. I think the key thing, what we are seeing a trend, there is always a tendency to build something on your own. I think that was a couple of years back. But as the dependency or the availability of the platforms increases, your main players will start scaling up. Again, when I apply the same digital transformation syndrome to technology company like you, Microsoft, for example, unless they change the business models of the future, the platform might not survive. So the temptation to do something of your own is always there in every IT, you can say CTO or CIO. But I think the matured way to look at things is, again, I'm taking it up, the holistic way of digital transformation. And you should explore in today's world what is readily available and what is sustainable and scalable. And these are the words that people should look out for.
So directly ask from ABB, Wilhelm, how has it been at ABB, or your IoT strategy? Has it always been about building grounds up, or you have always explored ready off-the-shelf solutions available in the market, such as iBot or maybe Microsoft, and looked at more at integrating those solutions and focus on the use case rather than the technology?
Yeah, so for us, for ABB, from the automation technology, it's up today, I would say, more technical decision, because we have our real-time requirements in our control systems and our communication with our devices. So if you think about the autonomous car and you ask the car in front of you whether it's braking or not, they cannot come back, sorry, I'm busy at the moment. So we need to be really reliable, real-time on the one side. That is most probably the area where we're looking into build. Then we have the area where we're looking into diagnosis, where we're looking into remote services, and there the buy solution is much more attractive because we have a huge amount of data and the real-time requirements are not that strong. So it will be a hybrid for now, but actually I see in the future coming up with 5G, most probably this barrier between real-time and other applications will vanish very soon.
Sanjay, so maybe you may have an alternate viewpoint because your organization has built multiple verticalized solutions. And you also work with enterprises in helping them build IoT platforms for themselves. So what is your take on this?
Okay. Fine. Yeah, so what we are seeing is customers to whom we approach have started to say, give us a complete end-to-end solution. I am not interested at this time in only doing the software part of it or just the hardware part of it or the communications. In fact, they have now come back and said, I don't even want to deal with the SIM cards, if the communication is over GSM and GPRS. Give me the entire solution, end-to-end. And in fact, we sometimes have gone out to our partner and said, why don't you, work with us, build the analytics on the solution that we have created for our customer. So our customers are looking at having one front end, whether it is iBot or a partner, and offering them the entire thing as a single unit. That's what we're seeing happening in the market right now.
Okay. So I think you briefly touched upon the fact having a partner network is very critical to the overall IoT ecosystem. And if we look at the IoT platform landscape, there are just so many platform providers. There are cross-stack platform providers, verticalized platform providers. And for all of them to work together, all these partners to work together, the standardization is one of the key challenges that we have always heard from end customers. So going back to you, Kishor, have you come across this challenge of companies working with multiple platforms and then coming to Capgemini for integration, but standardization being an issue and then you have to move across platforms?
There are quite a few examples. I think, but before going to the example, I'll look at what's happening at the, you can say, certain vertical bodies. And there are forums which talk about standardization protocols, so on and so forth. So we engage with some of the industry forums where they're talking about the, you can say, value chains of the future. When you talk about value chains of the future, that doesn't include only the business part of it, but it also talks about standardization of information exchanges. So they go down to the protocol. But I think that exists today. What does not exist today is the ability to scale up the standardization best practices across different cross-industry forums. I think that is where I'm sure with the pressure of IoT successes that companies will demand from IT, I think this standardization scaling up will happen automatically. But I think people are already talking about the factories of the future. This is not a use case which is to be showcased as a POC. There are organizations that we are engaged with. We are really building the factories of the future using IoT to the last mile, including the standardization aspect of it.
Agreed. All right. So Srikanth, do you have an alternate viewpoint? Do you think standardization is a challenge or it's a problem that has already been solved in IoT?
Okay, I think I do have a different point of view. I feel if you were to just look at the IoT stack today and sort of break it up into two layers, one way to call it sort of the hygiene communication protocols, the one where devices, the cloud, edge points have to interact. All of that is pretty standardized. You just look at any vendor, not just Microsoft. Like take any vendor, the protocols they use in terms of device to a cloud connectivity, whether it's HTTP, MQP, all of these are stuff that everyone is using a common language today. And that's what I would call in terms of basic device connectivity, what is your cloud infrastructure, and how do you analyze the data that comes into that cloud infrastructure, and then bring very rich visualizations that bring it all to life. If you just look at these fundamental pieces, at a hygiene level, those protocols are pretty standardized. Now, this bigger talk about, hey, why do we still need a further industry standardization is at a layer above that, and that comes when you really get into the vertical scenarios. Okay, so when you're really talking about an example, and I'll probably share this, it's a very real life case where we're talking to one of the largest, and we are actually in the implementation of a POC with one of the largest airports in India. And clearly the challenge has been about pilferage and containerization that happens in. Now, when you look at the standard protocols and say, do we have all the things that an airport probably needs today to do an end-to-end integration of all the touch points in which these goods move, whether it's high-end goods, they have some commodity goods that come in containers, trucks and all of that is absolutely standardized. And that is running on sort of an Azure platform that we carry in today, where the devices come, it could be a Linux Ubuntu-based device that is sitting at the edge. It could be sort of a Windows-based PC POS terminal that someone in the value chain is using to upload the data for the goods that are being consumed. All of these are multiple devices where the data is flowing. Today, the standardization is pretty clear across all those layers. Then you talk to the next level, and the airport says, "Hey guys, fantastic! You have solved for giving us a full view about how goods are moving, where we can control and tap on them." Now let's go and talk a little bit deeper about integration with airlines and how the cargo and other data transfer happens in each of this. Now suddenly there, airlines have different set of protocols and they follow in their own network. And how do you transmit data that is coming from a device all the way to your system, all the way to an airline's network, which is flowing in? That needs a different level of standardization. Today, if you ask me, is it existing? It's not. But the fact is, are you able to solve the problem? Absolutely yes, because you have addressed the core fundamental building blocks of what an IoT solution should resolve. So my sense is, as Kishor also outlined, going forward, some of these vertical layers and connectivity in those vertical dots is going to happen pretty well. But any decision that you take today on an IoT platform, the fundamental thing you should really look at it is first, is the platform open? That's what we've done a lot with Azure and others, where it's not just a Windows ecosystem. It's like take any Linux, Ubuntu, or any third-party open network that you're talking about. It has to connect systematically at all places. So that's what we're doing with customers today, and I feel that's an area where standardization will evolve.
All right. So I think you briefly touched upon one thing which is very necessary for any IoT platform to exist is to have an open ecosystem. And along with that comes creating a developer ecosystem so that the platform grows and sustains. So how is somebody like ABB working towards that? You have your own IoT platform. Somebody like GE has their own Predix, and they've created a very great developer network around it. For industrial companies to create those capabilities around software, create those capabilities around machine learning, how is large industrial organizations as ABB looking at this?
So that is actually what I said, the opening of the two worlds. Now, whether it's GE and ABB or Honeywell or anybody else, once we are opening, yes, we know the standards on both sides. If we are in the same domain, we will have the same standards, and it will be quite easy to connect. If there are different domains, actually, then it becomes more complicated, because then you need to have translations, you need to have technology to convert the data to understand each other. I think coming to a global standard across domains, that is, I think, something which will not happen in the near future. But overall, I think also we need to look into other challenges, like when we are opening our systems and the standards are known, also the standards are evolving continuously. Today, we have more or less within our domain a closed environment, the same as GE, the same as Honeywell. Once now we are opening to other organizations or to startups, for example, that they work on our interfaces with our data, that means we don't have this closed environment anymore. And if we then have, for example, a standard which develops, which has a next version, how to handle lifetime support, how to handle upgrades, updates, things like that. I think that is also something we need to think about now, and it's also something our standardization committees need to think about if it comes to backwards compatibility and long-term collaboration of the systems.
Can I add to that? So here's one myth about building dev ecosystems. Like Microsoft, one of the big areas for us as we keep launching platforms is to really rally the ecosystem around. And I'm being very honest, like this is a lesson I learned through as well, having been with Microsoft for some time. Earlier, I used to always think that, hey, building dev ecosystem is a lot about reaching out, getting developers connected. All of that is true, very true. Getting them to understand platform, opening up the APIs, doing evangelism, getting hackathons running. And we do a lot of it today with Azure, with a lot of other platforms, SQL, for example. But if there's one myth that really stuck me and I realized, it's probably the wrong lens at which you look at it. Yes, we got to do a lot of this, but that will address to what I call the early adopters in the dev side of the ecosystem in terms of getting them this technology adoption. The bulk of the ecosystem doesn't work on push. The bulk of the ecosystem actually is driven, just take any example, by pull. Any example could be how the .NET revolution happened, how Java went on its own way, what happened on the virtualization layer, how is cloud adoption happening today. It's not about like people absolutely reaching out and giving tons and tons of training. It's people who are themselves curious about getting to learn this new technology because they'd be get left behind, and the massive demand that enterprises created. That's the pull that drives dev ecosystem, especially markets like India. So I think as IoT gets more and more mainstream in enterprises, while your 10-20% of the dev ecosystem goes naturally through the push model, the 80% of the ecosystem will naturally align to adopting more and knowing more and working more on IoT solutions.
Correct. So I take that point that the initial push has to come from the developers and from the platform companies. But the organic growth of developer ecosystem would come once they find once the platform is good enough and has a real wide use cases. So another question that people already are always confused about when it comes to building IoT platforms or using IoT platforms, and I'll have that question for you, Sanjay. I'm sure you would have faced that. There's always this question that cloud is not good enough for IoT. We need to move to fog. We need to move to device computing. So what is your take on that? Is there a way or is there a methodology on how companies can figure out when to use cloud, when to focus on fog?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a context-dependent question. So there are scenarios where, in most scenarios, almost every 100% of them, there has to be some compute on the edge that can't be done away with. Whether it is a small decision, whether, as to if there is fire, do we start the sprinkler? That, of course, can't go to cloud, for a question mark, right? But there are other scenarios. So these are, this is one example. Where the volumes are high, as in the case of consumer appliances, the compute, on the edge will be, relatively low because we will have to keep the cost of device there, low, so that the consumers, don't have to pay extra for the capability. If you move to industrial kind of equipment, the compute, from cost perspective can also be, more there, but also the need to do so emerges, quite significantly. In fact, there is a customer sitting here in the audience, and we're working with them on a smart pump scenario. There has been quite a bit of debate on whether the vibrations of the pump should be analyzed on the edge itself, or should we take the data on the cloud and analyze it there. So there has been, these, situations where we have taken certain calls one at a time, but I'm sure this, situation will emerge. A lot of that compute ultimately, in our view, will happen on the cloud though, because the analytics and the intelligence, the algorithms to run that will significantly reside on the cloud, less on the edge.
Right. So we'll ask one of the industrial companies here, like Wilhelm. What is your take on it? What is more critical to you? The speed of the computations, for example, there is a failure and you want to respond quickly, or the kind of analysis that you are able to drive out of the data?
I think the speed of computation is not an issue anymore. So let me say, most of the mobile phones have more computing power than many automation devices. So that is really not a challenge at all. The challenge is really the speed of transmission of data and the amount of data. So as soon as the speed is sufficient to meet our real-time requirements, a lot of things will move away from the edge into the cloud. And that is probably then also the future for the business model. And then also that means other way around, it is a disruptive technology because right now the electronics, the computing power is on the device. If it moves to the cloud, it's also a different business model because by the end of the day, the customer pays for what the device is doing, not where the intelligence is.
So given that we are almost at the end of the panel, I'll open the panel to the question from the audience. Maybe you, sir, please. Pass on the mic.
Probably a bit pessimistic question. So we have some set of standard around technology related to IoT. But my question is about the social, moral, and ethical aspect of IoT. While visiting during lunchtime to one of the startups is offering that they have some IoT devices which they incorporate in your body. They inject that, and after that, they connect it with the devices. So I don't know that any standard is still there for here, at least in India, for guiding principle for that. If not, then this is a very dangerous trend that the people are coming with the idea and injecting some device in your body and then connect your outer world with that. there is no enough testing happen on that. There is no much R&D happen on that, and they are just open to market and free to use that. So want to know the stake on that, that there is any standard, or we are thinking towards that. So how the industry, what is the industry perspective on that?
So I think the bigger question here would be, what about the security in the era of Internet of Things? And somebody would like to answer.
I can take it.
Please.
So security in the era of Internet of Things, will reside on all layers of, the platform, starting at the end of, at the machine or the equipment or the human, which is facing the device, the IoT device. At that point, there has to be, any data acquired has to be instantaneously encrypted. Storage on the local device has to be encrypted as well. Communication from the device to the cloud, should be over, a secure channel. And then, of course, the cloud where the data is stored should also be encrypted. So it's the end-to-end which has to be, encrypted. Encrypted, secure, it is already happening. And, although it may be happening in pockets, there are protocols and standards available in each layer that can be brought together as an integrated whole. So some of the platform companies do it, we do it, and I'm sure that's the trend. At some point, we may see an integrated end to it, but right now, putting them all together is already working out well.
So maybe Kishor would also be able to add to it. Capgemini has worked with multiple large enterprises where security is very, very critical. So Kishor, is this security for Internet of Things, the way you approach it, different from the way you approach cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think it's a critical topic of discussion everywhere. That's given, because I think more open you become, the risk of data pilferages, everything is there. I think I also would like to add some element of the legal aspect of it, because as the industry evolves, as the digital transformation evolves, there are stringent cybersecurity laws coming in terms of you can say abiding by those or meeting those standards as such. So it's not only about technology, I think it's also about business ethics. I think it goes hand in hand. And we see there is a huge shift of people looking at things holistically. So it's no more only CIO or the IT services function of security. It is going beyond that. It has hit the boardroom. The security concern is not an IT security concern, it's a business risk people are talking about. So I think IoT, as I said, is a small element of a larger digital transformation. And the key decisions are happening in the boardrooms in terms of how secured are we.
Any more questions from the crowd? Please.
Hello. So, hi, this is Yogesh. Like since everybody is currently working on IoT, and as we all know that it is going to be a next wave of automation and optimizing operational aspects or business aspects, there are certain problems as well, as far as we can see. For example, if we look at different verticals, healthcare, mechanical, or finance domains, or even IT, for example, data centers and all. So there will be different type of sensors which will be used in various solutions which we will deploy, okay? So for example, whatever we put in data center may not be enough for mechanical industries or healthcare industries or in farming sector, okay? So as far as data generation is concerned, and as far as sensors are concerned, just wanted to check if there is going to be any standardization happening already at world level, so something like IEEE standard. Just wanted to check, like, any views on that?
Understood. So maybe Sanjay, you would be able to answer that well.
Yeah, so I think I did address this point even earlier. So even at a devices level, what signals to devices send, and how do you read that? All of that is pretty much done. Like, there is hardly any place where you would walk in and say, okay, how would a particular sensor read temperature be different from a sensor manufactured by a third party, and how does that read temperature? Of course, they will have their quality differences, but the way the data comes out and the way the data is read, all of that is pretty standard. So that's why I said like at a hygiene layer for the building blocks of IoT to happen, standardization has pretty much happened. Yes, it will get a little better. A lot of people will invest more in terms of fine-tuning stuff or making it more secure, better encrypted, and there will be areas where people will invest a lot more deeper in different ways of how different types of data you would like to collect and how sensors get ready there. But the most innovation will happen in those vertical scenarios, which is where I feel as IoT becomes even more mainstream, there will be a cluster of sets and scenarios that which are common across manufacturing. Maybe shop floor automation it starts with. And if that becomes common, then standardization will happen at that layer where you literally are able to say, hey, okay, these are the 3 processes by which an IoT device can come into enterprise and save costs. And if you want anything more than that, yeah, there are these custom-made stuff that will work for you. So that's pretty much answer. If you would like to add anything.
Maybe I want to add. This is again, if you look at the chip evolution, okay, it was very expensive when it started, and sensor industry is no different. Again, I'll go back to what I said. The industry which is looking at things of digital transformation holistically will survive, and we have a data to prove that in last industrial evolution or revolution, the companies who did not adapt to the changing need of the technologies, 56% of them are wiped off. If you want to survive, and to his question, the organizations will quickly standardize the verticalized way of sensors will survive. And today, if I want to procure from sensors from India, the lead times are between 6 weeks to 6 months. I think this is an opportunity for IoT-led revolution that's going to happen. And we can do many things out of India for sure.
So given that we are almost short of time, in fact we are done with time, I would like to wrap it up with thoughts from everyone around just one question. How do you think the platform landscape for IoT will look in the future? Do you think a single cross-stack platform will emerge, a single leader, maybe somebody like Microsoft or AWS that will emerge, or will it continue to be dominated by multiple fragmented players? We'd like to start with Wilhelm.
I think there will be not a single platform. There will be always domain-specific platforms with different requirements, and but they will come closer together over the years with the evolving standards, and very soon we will come to the next step.
Srikanth, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, pretty much. We think on the same lines. We think that there will evolve multiple platforms. Platforms cut across hardware all the way to software, analytics, and further value addition, which is verticalized. It's impossible that one single platform can cater to all of that. So there will be areas, there will be areas in, where there will be specialization, and then there will be entities that will bring them all together. So that's how we think it will evolve as it goes further.
All right. Kishor, your thoughts on
Yeah, I think I agree with it. We also have a view that there will be domain on fly. And that sets it all. I mean, you will not have one platform dictating a term. I think it's going to be mixed, but those who can provide a domain-specific information or solutions will survive.
I'm sure Sanjay would like to disagree and say Microsoft is going to be the only one, but your thoughts, Sanjay?
So it's pretty obvious. Look at any platform journey we have taken. It's how that has happened. You take it us, Google, Amazon. At a technology layer, at a fundamental what I would call the hubnobs or the plumbing part of it, you will have 1 or 2, 3 large players. Of course, there will be few others who are very, very specific to a vertical. But outside of that platform, now just look at what are those vertical scenarios, which is where you will have specialized players who will bring very deep expertise, which is way above that plumbing layer. And that's where like ton of innovation that's happening from startups all the way to some advanced companies, whether using AI, bots, how bots will get into this framework, how advanced intelligence will really take over, where you don't need to have sensors be monitored all the time and with some human sitting on the other side figuring out all of it. Literally, it is all automated at a different level. But all of those vertical scenarios and others will be where we find the startup partner ecosystem really taking off. But at a fundamental plumbing level, I would say there'll be a handful of players who can do this end-to-end. End-to-end in terms of data collection all the way to storing, to in terms of analytics, and then personalization and visualization. You can't have multiple players out there.
Thanks for your time, panelists. Thank you for the wonderful conversation we had, and thanks for the audience to listening to it. Hopefully you would have got some important bites for yourself to think and ponder over and answer to some of the questions that you were seeking through the conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen.